welcome to Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Welcome to another episode of Up Close with Carlos Sang. My next guest is about to play Madame Colbert in the London premiere of Flowers for Mrs. Harris. She is one of the most renowned leading ladies on the West End and the UK stages. It's a huge delight to be able to welcome the extraordinary Kelly Price. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's very nice of you to say. Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. Well,
so Flowers for Mrs. Harris, it debuted in, Sheffield and Chichester, and, it gained huge acclaim. It's quite surprising to see, that it's not only now that it's making its London premiere. Why do you think it's taken so long for London audiences to get to see the show?
Well, I definitely know that the pandemic came in the middle of that process. I think there was a lot of love and time spent on it. We have our writer, Rachel Wagstaff, in today. She was telling us about the birth of it and how it took quite a long time from the initial idea of it. Daniel Evans was directing it, and he was moving theatres from being artistic director at Sheffield to Chichester, and so then it took more time. But she was also saying that because of that space, and they were able to have reflection time and add more detail, and it had its showing, and then the pandemic happened, and the theatre world sadly closed down for a year or two, which I'm sure it stopped a lot of things in the process. I was about to do Sunday in the Park with George at Savoy. That was postponed and then postponed again. And so, we're just really grateful that the show is going to have a further life, and a new life, because we're, recreating it. And it's really great that a wider audience will get to see it, because it's really beautiful, and it's a new British musical, which it's thank goodness it's happening more and more now. But it's there's still rare gems, and we want to, give that space to thrive, and for people to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, as you say, a lot of shows have, come and gone over the years, but there seems to be a real eagerness for Flowers for Mrs. Harris to make its London premiere. Why do you think this show has been able to garner such a huge fan following and, really hit audiences so deeply?
I think it's just simply a beautiful story. That's the simplicity of it. It's very heartwarming. It's based on a novella, so there's lots of detail in there. And it's about basically an ordinary woman striving for something more, some magic in her life that she feels she's lost. So in that sense, it's a Cinderella story, I think. We all relate to them. And it's gentle and beautiful and heartwarming, especially, just what we need right now. And I think there must be something very special about this story, because there's been a book, and there's been the musical, and then there's been a film. There's something about it that really speaks to people. It's the ordinary, achieving extraordinary things. And it's a story about humanity and kindness and generosity, friendship, with a bit of magic and fashion and flowers and all the beautiful things as well in life sprinkled in there. So and I think it really appeals to quite a wide demographic as well. There's much to be enjoyed in there, and by all ages. And on another level, it's so sophisticated. It's very simply told, but it's such a sophisticated way of telling it. I think what Rachel and Richard have done, and how they interweave the music with the dialogue, and it's really classy, I have to say. It's difficult to learn. Oh my God, but it's like, when you do Sondheim's work, it's like it's really difficult to learn, and once you do, you just sit within it, and it happens really beautifully. And I think there's probably a character in there that everybody can relate to. Whether it is Ada, who's the cleaner from Battersea, whether it is her friend Violet, helping her, whether it's Lady Dant, Madame Colbert, who I play, there's somebody from all echelons of life, and so it's really relatable. And Ada, the central character, played fantastically by the incredible Jenna Russell. So far as I can see, she's just going to be astonishing.
Mm.
Um, she really, everyone who that character comes into to connection with, she changes their life for the better and touches their heart a little. And that, and I think that's a really beautiful story to tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I completely agree. The show, it really has some really gorgeous music and it's such a wonderful story. And as you say, it feels very distinctly British as well. What was your first reaction to the piece when you read it and listened to it?
I had that reaction. I just thought it felt almost, because of the detail in it, it felt like I was reading a period drama or something like that, or really carefully thought out, beautiful piece of writing, script wise and music wise. Um, and we don't always get those offered. Those kind of shows. It's delicately done.
Mm.
It's intricate, but it's yeah, I found it very appealing and quite a challenge for each person. Each person has their own challenge within it. We're rehearsing out there now Act Two, which is set in Paris. So a lot of us have to speak French and sing in French, and we're like, but it's a good challenge to take on board. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And also, Madame Colbert, she perhaps isn't the best loved character in the show, but she's such an integral part to the story. What was it that drew you to this part?
I wouldn't judge her like that. And I think, she does, yeah, there's something feisty and fierce about her, but it's because of the need to kind of get this show ready, and her love for her job and her passion and there's maybe that's where the fieriness comes through. And then I think she quite quickly softens, because each character in which is always very interesting for an actor to play. Each character has a longing for something. I mean, when you're playing part, you always have a longing for something, but each one has a little hole in their heart that needs filling. And I think I enjoy playing complex characters. I enjoy playing strong women,
Mm.
but it means that they're to as a whole, that they would, that they're not just kind of completely strong on the outside. There's usually something soft on the inside that needs a little attention, and it makes it really rewarding to play when you can figure out what that is. Why is she or going around ordering everybody about? Why is vicious at times? But I see it as that she's just got a job to do. And what's beautiful about how, I think what we're finding is that there is then a connection between Madame Colbert and Ada. There becomes an understanding, woman to woman, which, yeah, you just find the humanity in them. It was like when I played Captain Hook for Sally Cooks, and it was just what a wild experience, and she was a real psychopath in a way. But you have to still find the humanity in there, and what really makes that character a human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, it's really interesting. And as you say, it's also really interesting to see, this boom in new British musicals recently as well. With Standing at the Sky's Edge recently and Bake Off, and now Flowers for Mrs. Harris is coming back. How would you describe, what makes a British musical?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about all of them that, and there's Billy Elliot as well, isn't there? But I would be doing what I want to say is, really great storytelling and interesting characters and down to earth people quite often. But then that I wouldn't want to um, say um, say that doesn't appear in American musicals, because it does. I think it's just very, very difficult to make a really, really good musical. And we've had a flurry in the last 10, 20 years in this country. I mean, we have before, if you think of Andrew Lloyd Webber's work, but when you think of Matilda and Billy Elliot and Bake Off and, all these things happening more recently, I mean, I don't know whether we've decided to give more attention and more funding towards them. I'm not really sure. What do you think that makes a
Um,
British musical? I
I
don't
don't,
know.
I don't know. It's really interesting, but they do. You can always tell if it's like a British musical. You know, when you see something like Billy Elliot or Blood Brothers or Flowers from Mrs.
Yeah,
Harris, you know, there's something about them which feels very, you know, it feels very homegrown and it feels very unique as well. I guess
yeah,
they're also, you know, set in Britain a lot of the time as well, but you know, that's
yeah.
very much on the surface.
They're often about a community, aren't they?
Mm,
Or a specific community, whether it be a place or a school or what, that kind of thing. And a community we can relate to. I think also maybe we play with concept a little bit.
mm,
We don't necessarily, there might be a structure adhered to, and we sort of having this, but then it doesn't, say Flowers from Mrs. Harris, we don't have any big showy dance numbers, and it's not that kind of bells and whistles.
yeah.
um and it doesn't seem to need it. The journey and the arc of it is it's hitting the right notes, so to speak, at the right time anyway. But then that's not to say that all American musicals do that, but there is something about the challenging the structure and concept that I think maybe we do with British musicals.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something, yeah, it's something interesting to think about, definitely. Also, Riverside Studios as well has become this, you know, growing hub for theatre as well over the last couple of years. How do you think, you know, that space, you know, lends itself to this piece as well?
Well, I've only seen one thing there in a smaller space, so I have never been in the this theatre space that we're about to move into next week. Excitingly, I think one thing about I think there's about 550 seats, 600 seats, or something like that in the space, and I think that works really brilliantly for certain kinds of musicals, like chamber pieces, like this could be or not. I think we've got the Soho Place now has been built. Is it Soho
So
Place?
her place, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's been built, I think, with that in mind, because some stories and some musicals will get swamped with having to fill 1,500 seats a theatre or 1,800 theatre, and then probably slightly too big for maybe 200 seats. So
yeah,
these mid-size spaces, I think, are going to be able to allow this kind of work to flourish. And there's something you can still add, all the detail that you can add when you're doing something in a smaller space, but you don't have to have anything overblown and really grand to fill an enormous theater. So yeah, the more spaces we have like this, the more that this kind of work is going to flourish. And yeah, that's exciting. And the Riverside Studios is gorgeous. It's on the river. There's location. It's really amazing. And there's a big hub. There's a lot goes on there. There's another space, a studio space. There's some TV studios that are filming. So it's a little hive of creativity, which is exciting. But yeah, so we're looking forward to seeing what it's really like.
yeah, absolutely. The last time I came to see you in anything as well was in the sex party at the Menier Chocolate Factory, which was, you know, another quite intimate space as well. And I
Yeah.
actually really enjoyed the sex party as well. But yeah, I want to ask, you know, like how do you enjoy, you know, having that, you know, intimacy, you know, with your audience, you know, being able to have, you know, your audience close up?
Yeah, definitely do. Yeah. I've loved working at the Menier each time. There's something really magical about that, and having and being able to be theatrical but be completely as real as possible at the same time, and you can do that in those smaller spaces. um and I mean, it's not to say that a big theater doesn't take my breath away. It does. There's something. I remember my very, very, very first audition. I was still studying at Mount View, and I went to audition for Mamma Mia, but they called me into the Prince Edward on the stage itself. And I walked out, little me, 22. I went, just looked up, and there was just something about, I don't know, it's like going to church. There was something like a reverence about the whole place, because it was quiet. There was nobody in there apart from me and the cast and directors, and I just felt this magic. I was like, oh, this is what I have to do. And so I do think those big beautiful spaces have that effect, because it's an event in itself. But I love working in the smaller spaces. not having to push and not having to, just allowing the work to be there, and really feeling the audience. Quite often in anything, the audience become an extra character anyway, but you really sense it when it's that close.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was particularly effective, with the sex party as well, which, explored, really interesting themes in a very unfiltered way, which I think is
Yeah,
pretty rare as well. How did you
yeah.
find the experience working on that project too?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew it was going to be a little controversial, but it was designed to be, because it was about topics that are very personal to people, and it was meant to be provocative, for sure. We had a couple of young people who were quite offended by the end of the play. And the Menier is small, so the stage was there, but they were at the other side of it, and they made some comment and then walked out. We were all like still on stage acting, going, oh. But it doesn't. What was amazing about that play is that it provoked a conversation,
Mm.
and people came away from it, because everybody has views and ideas about it, about whatever issue it brought up, whether it's to do with sexuality, whether it's trans, whether it's there was even a section in the play about what pronouns should, people's pronouns, things like that. And there were a lot of conversations afterwards in the bar area, or with friends, or with family, and that's what theatre's designed to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it was a very brave play to put on now. So you enjoyed it?
I really did actually. As you said, like, it definitely provoked the conversation. I was definitely like talking to the people like next to me, going like, what did you think about it? I was, I
Yeah.
loved, as I say, how raw and how unfiltered it was,
Mm.
and yeah, the conversations that took place in the play. I didn't think you necessarily see in a lot of other theater shows or TV shows or films as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's it seems that where everybody is talking about in private in some way, and maybe we're not as confident as talking about some of the things in front of other people, but yeah, that's we it definitely provoked strong reactions, good as well, good and bad, positive,
Mm.
people. And I think that's I think theatre, we are given a platform and a voice in theatre and storytelling, and so it's important that those kind of plays are there, as well as the ones that are entertaining and fun and there for escapism. We have to use that to have conversations and reflect, and mirror up to society as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I also came along to see you in Passion as well last year at the Hope Mill Theatre, which again
Uh-huh.
is another very intimate space. And it was again very different to the Sex Party, very different to Flowers for Mrs. Harris. There's been such a huge variation in roles, over your career. How do you go about deciding what sort of shows or roles that you want to do?
Um, I'm not sure I do get to decide. If I wish I did. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Yeah, I think these opportunities come along, and I do believe that you do the right thing at the right time for you. I do think the right kind of roles come along as you mature, as your experience in life changes. Um, and yeah, and I think that's what's fallen into place. I think that's the if you are there and ready and prepared and pushing yourself forward in a certain way, then these roles come along. But yeah, I remember really meeting my very very first agent, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to I want to be leading lady. And he was like, darling, you want to work? I was like, well, yeah, I want to be versatile. I never wanted to be boxed into one thing. And luckily, I've managed to mostly do that. I would love to do a little bit more filming, but I managed to do the English Game for Netflix. And that was just fantastic. So I dreamed of doing a period drama, and whether it be in a musical or a play, I've been able to play interesting roles, and complex enough for it to be a challenge and interesting. And yeah, I feel very lucky with that. And in a variety of styles, like, you know. But there, you know, as we're rehearsing a musical now, there is nothing quite like doing that. You know, you get a sound, you get an underscoring and a soundtrack automatically given to you every day, and it's just, especially when it's really beautiful music like this, we get to, you know, enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Do you feel like, the demands are very different, when you're doing a musical compared to a play too?
yeah, definitely, definitely. I think you have to, if you treat each discipline with the same nuance and respect, which invariably you do, then yeah, it's triple the work, you know, sometimes. And because you've got to, and you've got to really make sure that you look after yourself, look after your voice. There's nothing like waking up in the morning and be like, oh Lord, you know, and you know, it's a little scratchy, or you've got a cold and you've got to manage to sing through it, and then you've got to rely on technique to kick in. And it's a gift at the same time, but it means I think it is very, very demanding on the body doing a musical or doing anything with a lot of movement and music at the same time. A
Yeah.
lot of plays are like that now, you know. I suppose we're, you know, fighting they call it the Netflix generation, don't they? Of like, you know, there's so many people's going home and putting on a streaming something, a series, and so the theatre has become even more immersive, and it means that it's requiring a lot of the actor, physically, mentally, emotionally, but you know, that's why we do it.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, quickly coming back to Passion as well, we really got to, see you, showcase your soprano as well, which we don't often get to see as well. How did you find it, coming to that piece and, playing Clara, for an intimate audience as well?
yeah, no, I was really excited to do Passion. I'm such a huge Stephen Sondheim fan, and he died shortly before we got to do it. And I remember sitting sobbing on my settee, but I really felt so very, very lucky and privileged that throughout when I discovered musical theatre, it was through a wonderful singing teacher called Deborah Catterall, who I found. I grew up in Wigan, and I found her, and I said, I'd like to learn how to sing. She says, well, you can, but you have to join my choir. So I did that, but it was learning classical music. So I trained classically to start with, but she knew I wanted to go off to train and do musical theatre, so she helped me learn Sondheim and Gershwin. So how lucky was I, you know? So that they were the first sort of pieces that I came to, and then obviously then, you know, being able to do some of his musicals after that has been such a gift, and, you know, one of the greatest joys of my life, really. And Passion, again, is one that's not as well known as some of the others. It hasn't had a big outing like some of the others have. So we, you know, really lucky to do that up in Manchester, which is right, you know, right near where I grew up. So, and in an intimate space, it felt like all the ingredients were there, and with an amazing cast. And the music, again, the music's so complex to learn, but once it's in there, you just, you know, you just allow it to all be there and in place. And yeah, well, I would sit backstage because, well, I was stuck there. It was a certain point, the audience, the configuration, and listen to Ruthie Henschel delivering some of the, you know, oh gosh, what is it? The one where they're on the bed.
What, Loving You? Or
No,
I
it's
Read?
later. I no, the one in between. Oh,
um,
oh God. Anyway, and it was yeah, it was just awash with them. I mean, obviously the performance was incredible with her and Dean, but listening to that music and that storytelling through music, I was like, wow. You know, Passion may have its problems. It might not be a perfect piece, but there are moments of utter brilliance and magic in it. And I was like, wow, you know, I'd rather be sitting here now than anywhere, right? And they're never tired of listening to it.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely
yeah.
a really gorgeous piece, I agree. And I remember, I felt like I was sitting among, many Stephen Sondheim aficionados. Did you
Mm.
feel any particular pressure, performing, a pretty well-loved piece among, Sondheim's fans, and bringing your own interpretation to the character too?
Yeah, I always do a little bit when I hear that the Sondheim Society are in. I do, because they know it all inside out and back to front. But you can only do what you have created and what the director has shaped. It's always a group effort. It's never, and you go with the show that you've all created together. So, and hopefully nobody wants to see the same show done the same way all the time. you
Mm.
know People, when they go to see something, even if they love it and if it's their favorite show, they still want to see a new interpretation. They want to hear a line ping out to them in a way that they've never heard before, and they want to hear a note in the music where they're like, so we all want to rediscover something. But yeah, there obviously it's a tiny bit of pressure when people are so fond of something. But
Yeah,
mm,
of course. And you've always, you've always worked with some really lovely casts as well over your career. On Passion, as you say, with Ruthie Henschel and Dean John Wilson. You're now currently
yeah,
working with Jenna Russell.
yeah.
How quickly are you able to, bond with, your company and with the cast as well? Has there ever been any challenges, with collaboration at all in your career?
No, I think especially when you do fringe theatre, because you know that you're working in these small spaces, the demands are really high on you to basically roll your sleeves up and get on with it. And as a result, it makes a company bond quicker, I found. People don't run off into their dressing rooms, and it's not that kind of separation. It's not, and everyone's really mucking in, and yeah, there's just something about that. I always think, see us, especially the whole, you're rolling around in the dust together, uh, and it just anything else goes out the door, and it all just becomes about just being in that moment and doing the work and doing the best we can and supporting one another. I think it helps you bond a lot quicker. Um, so no, I always have a great deal of respect for whoever I'm working with. I've been really, really lucky. Like, Jenna and I met on Guys and Dolls. So, we were talking about those days. It was Ewan McGregor, Jane Krakowski, Douglas Hodge, all these. And then afterwards, it was Patrick Swayze and Adam Cooper. And I was, as a young actor, I was just like mind blown. And they were all really good, kind, wonderful people.
Mm,
It's rare
yeah.
that you meet a diva. It's rare. It's rare. And I think it's such a cliche, isn't it? But and there's so many people I've worked with as well who've now gone on to do so brilliantly, like Jessie Buckley and Hannah Waddingham, and that what a we're all still on a WhatsApp group, and we were like, wow, look at it's great to see that happen, and they're all you know just lovely people.
Yeah, they're really
Yeah.
brilliant, and yeah, it's so amazing to hear you, say that as well. Yeah, just as a last question, coming to back to Flowers for Mrs. Harris, what do you hope audiences will take away with them when they see the show?
I think the overall message is partly what you give out will come back to you in a positive way. So go out there, be generous and be kind and be good to someone, and you never know how that little act of kindness might change the course of their life. And never lose hope. And yeah, I think and I just hope that they have a really beautiful couple of hours at the theatre, can transport them into a world of you know late 1940s London, and then flying off to Paris, and come along for the ride with us, and really be more Ada. I should start a hashtag, shouldn't I? Hashtag be more Ada.
Ada.
Because it really is all seen through Ada Harris. Jenna plays her eyes. Obviously, these are the characters satellite around her, and but it's with her that things change. And yeah, you never need to be lonely. Yeah.
Very beautiful words. Kelly Price, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much.